Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 14 of the Strictly NFL podcast. I can't believe it's been nearly an entire season of doing this. So thank you guys for listening along the way. And we finally have an episode where we can pretty much, not totally, but almost ignore New York sports, which have been a fucking shit show this year. So the Strickland does have a Patreon. There's a $3 tier, a $6 tier, and a $9 tier. This podcast can be found behind the $9 tier if you like what you're hearing. In addition to the Strickland having a YouTube, which is the Strickland, on Instagram at thestrick.land. The $6 Strickland Patreon can get you access to the Strickland Roll, which is Shwin's personal podcast every other week, in addition to a lot more stuff like a mailbag, Strickland Discord, and all that other good stuff. Secondly, this podcast is sponsored by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs, and it's where you can get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and many more sports. It continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place online wagers, including live betting, and where you can play your favorite casino and card games right from your phone. So you can head over to their website, or like I said, use your phone to sign up today and get in on all the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE, which is capital BLEAV, for 50% off on your welcome bonus first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. So, without further ado, you guys see on the screen if you're watching on YouTube or on the Patreon, we got Shwin here in addition to Jeff. So, how are you doing, boys? Shwin, I know it's been a rough week for you. We'll start off with you.
Basketball is the best sport. It's the only sport, some are saying.
Yeah, the people, they're saying.
Yes.
The streets.
That Bills Eagles game was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen in my entire life. I guess if I have to lean one way, I'd probably be pro Eagles because I'm not a Giants fan. I'm a Broncos fan, and the Bills are, I guess, a conference rival. I mean, the Bills and Broncos have very little history, but
yeah.
So I'm pretty neutral here, and I'm just watching this game, and I don't understand. I don't like the sport. It's honestly I know people are tuning in here to get excited about the NFL, and I mean I love the NFL. I love football, but that is the type of game that makes me almost embarrassed to be a football fan because it was so clearly it was worse than the Dolphins game where the Eagles didn't commit a penalty in the Dolphins game. This was more blatantly biased than that game. It was just insane because it was so clear the second the Bills got ahead that the refs were going to do everything they could to keep the Eagles in it. They needed this game to be close. And every single edge went the Eagles' way for the rest of the game. And then, it's just it was just fucking awful to watch. It was an awful viewing experience. And honestly, Shwin, we talked a number of times. I can't believe you weren't more furious because we talked last week and I asked you, what do you think of the idea that the Bills would be a good Super Bowl bet if they made the playoffs? And you were like, yeah, if they make the playoffs, I can see that because that means they would have beaten a number of really good teams and a number of really tough matchups. And as an emotional fan, they had that. They had that in the bag. They should be a favorite. They should be a betting favorite right now to make the playoffs. And instead they have to go into Kansas City.
Well, fortunately against Kansas City, the refs shouldn't be a factor. So that'll be good.
I think just before you say anything, Shwin, I think Philly has overtaken Kansas City. I think they're the league darlings now. I think it's more just watching the Eagles this season. I mean, I do think they're dying for the Swift matchup in the Super Bowl. So I think that's the ultimate goal. But I think at the margin, the Eagles have actually overtaken the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I think what made it even more frustrating is that on top of the refs absolutely fucking us, we still should have won that game. And I thought McDermott just that's. I've been pretty firmly on the keep Sean McDermott and whatever. And I still think give him one more year. I think it's weird to fire him after this season because it is really the first disastrous season they've had.
Yeah.
But if you were on the kind of I don't know, if this one tilted you to fire Sean McDermott, I'm not going to blame you because I thought he coached a really cowardly game, and I think you can actually take decisions from this game and genuinely question, like, does he understand the team that he's coaching currently and what are his strengths? Like, what are your team's strengths right now? Is a genuine question that I don't know that I don't think his answers to that are actually aligned with what they are, because you took a fucking timeout on a 60-yard field goal to ice the kicker. Just let him kick the fucking field goal. Okay. He makes that. You have 2 timeouts then with 20 seconds left. Josh Allen can do that. Like fucking Patrick Mahomes did it against us in the playoffs. Like you were on the fucking sideline for this shit. Okay. So Josh Allen can do that. He's got a cannon. And you know why I know that Sean McDermott knows that? Because he literally sat there on Thanksgiving last year and watched him do it against the Lions. Like he had 20 seconds left, 21 seconds left with 1 timeout. He threw a piss missile fucking, it's like 40 yards down the fucking middle of the field, hits Diggs. We kick a field goal. We get out of there with the victory in regulation. Like you've seen him do that. So to be that risk averse there is really, really problematic. They asked him after the game, or it might have been Monday. They do the Monday post game press, like the next day press.
Shwin, let me hop in a little bit. I'm sorry, and you can get back to that point. But when has overtime ever favored the Bills?
Well, and this is what I'm getting to. Okay, fine. You get to overtime. I don't agree with that decision. Whatever. You get to overtime. You have 3rd and 6 from whatever it was, like the fucking 23. It doesn't matter where it was from. It's like somewhere between the 20 and 30-yard line, right? And you've got 3rd and 6. They asked him after the game, right? Because they throw the shot to Gabe. It's not complete, and then he kicks the field goal. Then obviously Philly comes down. They score a touchdown. They asked him that Monday, so the day after, about that, and they were like, "Did you ever give any thought to going for it on 4th down? Given kind of like your defense is beat up, Philly had moved the ball really, really well in the second half. Like, did you give that consideration?" And he said, what he said was, at 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, it's a different thing. And then you have Josh and then you go for it. But at 4th and 6, you don't go for it. And to me, that's a horseshit answer, because your play call on 3rd and 6 indicates you never viewed that as 4-down territory. That was a shot play all the way. You watch that play back 35 times. It's a shot play. There's nothing else on that play. That play was designed to take the shot to win the game, which I am fine with. But don't then tell me that we would have gone for it on 4th if it was 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, because you never had an intention of going for it on 4th down there. That you never that thought that you were either going to win the game there or you were going to kick the field goal. You didn't give a shit about 4th down. So I had a really big problem with that, because to me, I'm okay with kicking the field goal there, but just fucking give me the right answer. I think it's very justified. It's 4th and 6. I get why you kicked the field goal. Okay, I get it. But just give me the answer there is bullshit. That's the wrong answer. The answer should just be, we took a shot on 3rd down and we trusted our defense. Now that's misguided too, but at least that's an honest answer, and it's at least logical. To say that you would have, it would have been 4-down territory if we got it to 4th and 2 or 4th and 3. That's bullshit, because you didn't run a play on 3rd down that gave you a chance to even make it 4-down territory. That's just garbage to me. And that actually pissed me off. And I think there's been a lot of parsing of Sean McDermott's words this year. And I gotta say, this whole thing that's been going on. I mean, look, we're Knicks fans, so we experienced this. You remember when they fired David Fizdale, and it was like, oh my God, they're scapegoating David Fizdale. And I'm like, one, this just puts more pressure on them, and 2, David Fizdale sucks at his job, so who cares? This is fine. And it's he's scapegoating Ken Dorsey. I'm like, Ken Dorsey sucks at his job. I don't care if you want to show me 7,000 charts that show me EPA. Guess what? You have Josh Allen. Your EPA is going to be really fucking good, and you're going to be in the top right corner of all these fucking charts. That does not tell me that Ken Dorsey is good at his job. And if you want to see why Ken Dorsey stuck at his job, I would recommend everyone go check out Cover One. Go check out the film room they did breaking down Ken Dorsey's offense after he was fired. And you will see, there's no layering of concepts. There's no natural progressions built in that make any sense. It was all one side of the field stuff. And then to progress, if nothing's open, you have to all of a sudden now look all the way to the other side of the field. And that sounds stupid, because you're like, well, isn't that how it works? Half a second, 1 second in the NFL is that is the game.
It's a lifetime.
That's the game. And like Joe Brady, look, I don't know if he's fucking amazing or not, but I see very obvious improvements in how games are being called, how concepts are being built, how they're installing something in the first quarter to then build on it. Like the touchdown pass they threw to Gabe Davis in the fourth quarter. In the second quarter, they ran that exact play. They ran the ball in the red zone. They ran it for James Cook. He got like 3 yards down the 3-yard line. They ran out of that same exact setup, same exact way they lined up. In the fourth quarter, it's a fake draw. Boom, Gabe Davis open touchdown for a slant. Like I'm sure you can find Ken Dorsey doing stuff like this, but like his window dressing was garbage. And like there's a reason why every Bills fan going back to like midway through last season was like, what the fuck is this offense? And then like, last year the issue was like, oh, everything is a vertical deep shot. Like, why don't we have anything built in underneath? And then like, I think his fix to that was just like constantly having underneath routes, but it's like, okay, well, now you're doing this. You have to build on this now to give yourself vertical opportunities. And that just wasn't happening at all this year. His use of personnel was bizarre to me. He's not creative. Like he didn't use, if I'm the front office if I was Brandon Beane, like the reason I'd be pissed about this season is this is easily the Bills' best roster in the last 5 years. Like it's not close.
Pre-injury.
Yeah. I mean, this roster their offensive roster has actually not been that injured. So like they don't even get that pass, but this is probably their best team since 99. Like not an exaggeration at all. So the fact that they're at 6-6, there's a lot of people to blame for that. Sean McDermott for sure, but Ken Dorsey's offensive play calling. I mean, we had how many games in a row? That Giants game, the fucking game against the Broncos, the game against the Jaguars. You're talking about like 3 games that were all. I mean, they did win the Giants game barely, but like you're talking about
the Patriots game.
Yeah, the Patriots game. You're talking about so many games where you're going through an entire halves of football without scoring touchdowns, without scoring points, without like looking cohesive in any way. And you want to fucking sit there and like these fucking, national guys who clearly are not watching the actual tapes and just looking at fucking X and, Y, like, oh, what does the X axis say? What does the Y axis say on this chart? Like, I'm sorry. Like anybody that thinks Ken Dorsey is doing a good job is a fucking idiot. And that's not to say Ken Dorsey can't be a good coordinator at some point. Like I do think he has some good concepts. I think he has good ideas. He was 100% not ready to take on the role of being an offensive coordinator for a team that has championship expectations and has championship caliber personnel. And he should have been fired after that disgusting Bengals game last year in the playoffs. But like he wasn't. And that is something that Sean McDermott has to own because ultimately the coaching staff has always been his, like he's allowed to do what he wants to do there. He chose to keep Ken Dorsey for longer. And you can tell me maybe it's because Josh Allen led Ken Dorsey. I don't really give a shit. At the end of the day, that's your call as a coach. He has to own that. And that is part of why this reason is a failure. And I do think that people that want him gone, that's something that you can point to.
Well, what I would say is it's obvious, like watching the Giants, right? Even though we've been horrible this year and looking back a bit on last year.
Oh, this Tommy Soprano slander is crazy.
Respect Tommy Cuts. But so like last year, right? A lot of the stuff on offense was cutting the field in half or was, like a naked boot, that type of stuff. And while that stuff is easy concepts, they always added a kink to it. So like against the Bears where DJ had a big day running the ball, he had like 70 passing yards that game, but he ended up with I think 2 or 3 total touchdowns. He ran the boot. There was no route going to his side, but he was sticking off of the boot with the ball, acting as if he's going to throw a pass, and then he just takes up the sideline for a touchdown. So like there is none of that stuff. And I'm going to get into the QB run game a little bit after this because I had a huge issue with that 3rd and 6 play call that you brought up. The Bills stuff that they run, it is not progressive over the course of a game, which is what I think you were trying to say, right?
Yeah, you're not building on it. There's no like the window dressing. I actually do think like forgetting the 3rd and 6 play call, what it was. I do think Joe Brady's done like it's noticeable. I mean, you look at
Yeah.
how we performed against the Jets defense for the last 2 years has been a nightmare for us. You come, and I understand that, like, look, we got the last remnants of the Zach Wilson era and their offense has been shit and blah, blah, blah. But like, they moved the ball consistently throughout that game against the Jets defense. They had open guys, like they schemed stuff up. You saw what this offense is capable of against an elite defense, and it was really good. And so to me, like, you know, I'm not saying Joe Brady is the greatest offensive mind ever. I do think that his big sin is should have never attached himself to Matt Rule. That was a huge mistake.
That's the thing. Joe Brady, for all the fucking bad stuff that's happened in the NFL, his label coming in here was he might know like the trick to scheming up open intermediate routes. That was the thing with Joe Brady, and that was like the Jamar Chase catches and all that stuff. The reason why he went so high in the draft is because when he made a play, it's because he won, right? It's not because Joe Brady helped him. Whereas you look at like Terrace Marshall, he went day 2, I believe it was early 3rd or maybe late 2nd. He went day 2 because even though he put up the stats, his wins were not Terrace Marshall wins. They were Joe Brady wins. And that's the difference. That was a selling point. And that's why I think more to the Dalton Kincaid side of things, like I think Kincaid having 5 for like 40 against the Eagles this week, like that's the type of thing that can't happen because we know Joe Brady can get that type of intermediate game open. And like, granted, he got Gabe Davis 6 for 100 and a touchdown. Sure, like that's cool. But at the same time, I don't really care about Gabe Davis because having Kincaid be effective changes defenses
Because he's not
a
on your
lot
fantasy
more.
team?
Well, no, it's a Dalton Kincaid is only on one of my fantasy teams, so it's fine. But
I gotta say, as someone who's gotten burned by Gabe Davis like 8 straight weeks, I was pretty okay with those touchdowns. But you know,
I also have Gabe Davis in 2 of my fantasy leagues, so I was pleasantly surprised by him putting up a respectable score line. But like,
Shwin, if you go look at his game log since like week 5, it's like the definite. You know this. It's like the definition of boom or bust.
yeah,
I swear to you, I have gotten the decision wrong. I'm 0 for 8 before last
I think
week.
you texted me about that, right?
I started him 5 times and he scored like a combined 4 points in his 5 starts. And then he scored like a combined 60 points in the 3 times I benched him or something. I literally got the decision wrong every single week.
So
I don't think I've ever hated a player as much as I hate Gabe Davis this season.
So, well, look, a lot of Bills fans feel the same. But like, just to what you're talking about, though, like, to me, the difference in like Dalton Kincaid was whatever he was, five catches, 43 yards. The difference to me is like, I'm fine with that because the offense as a whole performed well. Like, so the way to think about this is to bring basketball into this. Like, I remember a few years ago when Jim Boylan was the head coach of the Bulls, they had this like offense, and it was like, oh, but like everyone's like, this offense sucks. But you'd look at it and you're like, well, they're taking a lot of threes and they're taking shots at the rim. Like, this has to be good. And he's like, I remember Lauri Markkanen was like, I don't like this offense. Like, I don't really get it. And everybody's like, well, you're taking more threes and you're getting shots at the rim. This is a good thing. But like, you know, anybody that watched that and everybody knew after a little while, I was like, Jim Boylan's a fucking idiot. This team sucks. Like, you can't just like Ken Dorsey was designing stuff that was like, yes, it is objectively good to throw to Stephon Diggs. It is objectively good to throw to Dalton Kincaid in the intermediate range. But like, doing these things in isolation without any just like, what is this in the broader picture? What is the point of targeting Dalton Kincaid in this intermediate area? Is it just to target him there? Is that the only purpose? Or am I targeting him here so that now the safety has to come down and then I can hit Gabe Davis over the top? Like, those are the type of things that you were not seeing. And I'm just giving you a very basic idea of it. Like the point of taking a bunch of threes isn't just to like take threes, right? It's to create space and put a defense in rotation and like all these things. So like, the Bills were, yeah, sure. You can, if you were looking at the charts, you're like, well, the EPA is good. And look, this is great. And look at Josh Allen's completion percentage. And it's like, yeah, all that stuff is great because Josh Allen exists on your team. That's not great because of your scheming anything up. And like, this to me is what drives me nuts about the Josh Allen conversation over the last basically, year and a half, 2 years, whatever you want to call it, since Daboll left, is like there's a reason why Josh Allen under Daboll and Daboll with Josh Allen, because let's remember, Daboll before Josh Allen was not some like successful, awesome offensive coordinator in the NFL. Okay. But those
he was
two guys
actually a
together,
defensive guy coming out of Bama.
Right. And so like Daboll with Josh Allen, right? They got the best out of each other. And, you go back, the last game that Josh Allen ever played for Brian Daboll is that epic game that we totally won in Arrowhead because the game is only 59 minutes and 47 seconds. But like he played, like he literally had a perfect playoffs. He had 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's playing, incredible levels of football, right? There is a reason why you go from that to even last year, right? The numbers look great on their surface, but all of a sudden he's this turnover machine in the red zone, which was never a problem before. All of a sudden he's like, it doesn't like, the numbers feel right. And they're explosive, but there's no flow. Something is wrong here. And like, so even as you're adding talent, like the Bills objectively they have a better running game today than Daboll ever had. They have they have a better backfield than Daboll had. They have a much better offensive line than Daboll ever had. They have a better wide receiving core than Daboll had. They have a better tight end core than Daboll ever had. And yet, not a single Bills fan, you would not find a single Bills fan that was like, this offense is better than it's been. That's a problem. That says something about coaching. And to bring it back to my point about like, if you're the front office of this team, I'm not saying you got to fire Sean McDermott, but I do think, I don't expect this team to make the playoffs now. I do think when this season ends, you got to sit down and have a serious conversation with them and lay down some very, very clear like targets. Like, hey, you got to do X or you're out of here, because this was a total waste of a season. And not just a waste of a season, you wasted a year of Josh Allen's prime with maybe the most talented version of this team that you're going to have for a few years, given the cap considerations coming up and considering the fact that Von Miller apparently might be a gigantic piece of shit.
That was
there were always some pretty worrying rumors about Von Miller, like when he was in Denver. I don't have sources, but I do have friends of friends, who live in the Denver area and who heard some things that weren't the best. I'm not again the furthest thing from a reporter. I am also the last person to judge a man's character who I don't know until the facts come out. I'm not saying anything, but the Von Miller stuff is just, that's.
Well, he was accused in Denver, and then I think his girlfriend retracted the accusation. Like he had something come out in 2022 after he signed with the Bills where he like released explicit pictures of an ex. Like he's had some stuff, but like, I mean, I didn't even know about the Denver thing until today, to be honest. Like, I didn't know he was even accused of anything. So like, look, this is just, unfortunately, the stuff that gets brushed under the rug, but and like Jeff said, maybe it'll come out that this is all bullshit, but the initial reporting on this doesn't look great. And, again, fuck Von Miller and forget Von Miller. Like even without Von Miller, this is the most talented roster the Bills have had in forever.
Von wasn't doing much this season anyway.
Yeah, and that's what makes it even,
spade.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it even more frustrating is like, because even with Von doing nothing, this team is they're so much better than their talent. And this has been like, this is why that 13 seconds will fucking kill me forever until they actually, if they ever do, win a Super Bowl, because the seasons like this happen. Like this, it happens. Like sometimes Aaron Rodgers had a bad season in the middle of his prime. Like Drew Brees, I think they missed the playoffs 6 out of like 14 years that he was in New Orleans with Sean Payton. Like it can happen. The only guy it never happened to is fucking Tom Brady because he's a fucking scumbag piece of shit. But like,
and he sold the soul.
Yeah, but like Peyton Manning's had that. Like every team has had. I don't know if Peyton has. Maybe Peyton's another alien.
They had that really weird 4-win season at the start of his career. Like
that was like he was a rookie, right? And he threw like 30 interceptions.
No. It was like the Jim Mora practice season, because they went 13-3 in '99, I think, and then the practice season happened in 2000 or 2001. Yeah.
Well,
and then after that, not only did he make the playoffs every year of his career, but he won his division most and I think years of his career.
I think that year, what you're talking about, like that was also just a really bad turnover season for Payne, and it wasn't just turnovers. I think he had like I think he might have led the league in pick sixes. Like, it was just a bad season for him. But like, the point is, like, even great quarterbacks and with teams, like they'll have, like, John Elway's had bad seasons, I'm sure. You know, like the best of the best, maybe not, you know, when you're talking about Brady, Manning, Montana. But you know, it's not some egregious thing. It just sucks because I don't even think Josh. I really like the conversations around Josh Allen are always dumb to me because what it always comes back to is there are people that will always root for him to fail because when he got drafted, they had skin in the game that said he sucked ass. And as soon as as soon as he turns the ball over once, oh my God, is Josh Allen a turnover machine? Go check out his turnovers this year compared to the great princely Patrick Mahomes, who never has made a mistake in his life. Like, you might be surprised by what that turns out to be. But like,
we just need to stop purporting that and thinking like that. Like, I was number one on the Josh Allen hater bandwagon. I was so sure he was going to be a bust. I was like, dude from Wyoming who turned it over a bunch at Wyoming. This guy's going to suck.
52%.
And then literally, I remember where I was week 1 against the Vikings. When he jumped over that dude, I was like, this guy's fucking awesome. I don't care if I'm wrong. Like, I've been rooting for him since then. If you're listening to this,
it was Anthony Barr too.
If you're listening to this and you're at all open and minded, stop valuing your own takes over just like objectively watching what's in front of you. It's so clear Josh Allen's awesome.
And this is also like I did this with Tua. Like, I still don't think Tua is in the conversation with, like, you know, Mahomes or Allen or whatever. But like, you watch him, like, I'm sorry, yes, does he have great talent around him? Sure. But like, he is a precise passer, right? Like, his timing is probably the best in the league. Like, that's a talent. That now you can tell me, and I agree with this part of it, where it's like, yes, but like, the best teams aren't going to let you run your shit on time. Like, you've got to be able to playoff schedule a little bit. And we saw that, I think, when they played the Bills. Like, he hasn't ever had a great game against the Bills for a reason. Like, because they have a good defense and they can take things away. But like, the point,
they seem to have figured out that he doesn't really process super well. He pre-plans a lot of his throws. So like, he, more than any quarterback I think I've ever watched, will make a throw where you're like, were his eyes covered? Like, why did he think putting the ball there was okay? And it's like, oh, because he trusted his. He trusted his pre-snap read so strongly. He was just sure that throw is going to be there, and he just threw it to the spot. And so understanding Tua is understanding that. He's not making reads based on what he's seeing. He's making reads based on his pre-snap read a huge percentage of the time.
And just to kind of wrap up what you were talking about, Jeff, like, to the point you're making is like, look, if you're just wrong about something, you're wrong about something. You know, like for example, when Julius Randle has a good season, I'm like, oh, I was wrong about Julius Randle. But then when he has a bad season, I'm like, I always knew this guy was the worst.
Don't check my. You could check my tweets on this. I've never liked him.
But like Tua, he's like, at the bare minimum, he's much better than I thought he was, and I stand, like, he's a really solid quarterback, and you know, like, it's okay to just not be right about stuff. And like, I just think the Josh Allen conversation is really stupid. And it's like constantly about all the like, oh, he turns the ball over. Okay. Yeah. He turns the ball over. I'm sorry. I will always be okay with Josh Allen turning the ball over. He has 13 interceptions this year. He's probably lost like 3 or 4 fumbles. You know what else he has? He has 24 touchdown passes and he has 9 rushing touchdowns. And he is, during the Dorsey era, was definitely singularly carrying our offense in ways that, honestly, I'll just say this. This is what I'll say about Josh Allen. And, you know, most people listening to this who aren't fucking Stacy aren't Eagles fans. If you swap Jalen Hurts into this Bills offense, I promise you that is not going to be good. And I don't think Jalen Hurts is a bad quarterback, but I'm sorry. Like, you're talking about the level of creation that Josh is kind of expected to do. Even in the Dable era, like, Dable created a system that made it easier for Josh to create, but don't get it twisted. Like, it has been the Josh creation show. And you know, Kansas City does this with Mahomes too. Like, they know what he is. He's a great creator. He's maybe not the most, I don't think Patrick Mahomes is like the most amazing processor of the game I've ever seen. He's a good one. He's not like Peyton Manning or something, though. He's not Tom Brady. But what he is phenomenal at creating. And you let these guys do that, And, I think I forgot who said this, but you remember he had that play against, I think it was against the Giants where they had that, thing in the end zone where like Leonard Williams was fighting people or whatever. And you see like Josh Allen like jumped in and like hit somebody. And they asked like somebody after the game, like you probably didn't want to see Josh like risk his, hurting his hand there or something. Right. And he's like, look, like you can tell Josh what you want to tell him, but like, you can't tame a wild Bronco. Like that's what it is. Like he was just like, you can't turn him into something he's not. And I do think in a lot of ways this season, there has been a little bit too much of like trying, Josh needs to like be secure. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get that, but like, like what Jeff's talking about, like, but sometimes you just need to let that motherfucker jump over somebody and let him feel good about it. Like,